and then to have different rules all over the country where people could step over a line and be in a different area.
Yeah.
I mean, he just didn't want to be unpopular. That's how it feels.
Yeah.
So you think to yourself now, well, okay, they're rolling out this vaccine quick as lightning, and all the old people, and by the time they get to through the over 70s, it'll probably be the summer anyway. But I just, you can ask yourself questions like, what is the motivation for this now? Is it because it's costing the government too much money? Is it because they want to get the thing back on track? Is it because they think people aren't going to be happy to stay in their houses for the next 6 months? Or because they don't have any other plan?
Yeah.
And then you ask yourself, well, how much of this is about public health and concern for public health? And how much of it is about expediency and saying how many people's health can we...
sacrifice.
If you think, I was thinking earlier, I was saying they're not going to roll it out among the young people first, because if there is some down the line effect, those people who have that effect might be, I know it sounds terrible and cynical, but those people might be actually having to use the services of the health service for the next 60 years. I mean, whereas if you give it to 90 and 80-year-olds, well, there might be a problem, but they're not going to be reliant on health services for very long.
Yeah.
And, maybe this hasn't crossed anyone's mind, but because we and the Americans and the Europeans, we live in a neoliberal system where people get reduced to quantifiable kind of units of value.
Yeah. That
you can never trust, really, that that's not actually what's going on. So you think at a certain point when they get desperate enough, how serious are they going to take some lives over others, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So,
I think these are all questions. I think the desperation and the need, because they don't want to support people with money, is this neoliberalism at work again? Is this economics? Is this the fear that the government doesn't want to give people the idea that they're going to keep supporting them?
Yeah, which is also very confusing, because the government seems to have magicked up all this money, and I think we discussed it before, so we shouldn't discuss it again. But that's very worrying, at least for me. Well,
it's worrying more for them, because people are going to get the idea that the magic money tree does actually exist. It usually doesn't exist for us.
Yeah.
The corporations and the banks know it exists for them.
Yeah.
But it doesn't usually exist for us, and I think it's a very important part of the system that we never get to
realize
that it exists for us, because then we might start expecting universal basic income and all sorts of things that will overturn the way the system works.
Which I think would be, a nice idea, actually. The only thing I worry about is that that it would basically just be like supporting private companies by putting money into our pockets that we can then spend on...
yes,
products,
essentially. We should at some point discuss the fact that the economic model that we're pursuing, even if we could get it back on track, isn't sustainable if global warming is an issue.
Yeah.
But one hope I do have in all of this, I like to say something good at the end.
Yeah.
The one hope I have been having in all of this is that the longer it goes on, for me, I'm thinking the hope is, well, maybe the governments that we have are going to come to their senses and think, this can't carry on. We need to find another way. And perhaps people will, at least in Europe, perhaps not in America, but at least in Europe, and maybe even here, the government will begin to think that a better way of going about this is to give people a living standard in a kind of basic income, because obviously jobs aren't going to come back in the way they did before and all sort of thing.
Yeah.
So maybe this will be a turning point for us. I think it's the best that we can hope for out of this.
That's what I think. I think that's the best overall, because I think this is the whole kind of decision, or dichotomy, I think is the right word, where you have on the one hand the government trying to preserve at all costs this neoliberal system. So everything they want to do is basically, let's get rid of this one thing so that we can return to our destructive lives the way they were before.
Yeah.
And then the coronavirus is like this annoying thing trying to stop us getting from where we really want to be, consuming and destroying everything.
Right.
But what would be nice is if the main purpose of all of our lives wasn't to, slave away at our jobs for meager salaries and to, so we can buy products from, enormous corporations, but have some sort of thing where, our lives were prioritized over the preservation of a system, change the whole system essentially, so that people's lives aren't only about sustaining the economy, but more about just living a nice life.
Well, exactly. One of the things that neoliberal systems can't take into account is functions of human beings that are outside of their function as consumers.
Yeah.
So we are quantified in that way, but of course we can't be quantified. And I think one of the things that is interesting about this particular crisis is that it may actually, and probably has already actually, begun to make people feel that maybe the most important thing isn't what they're buying, but actually seeing their families.
Yeah, exactly.
Being able to be together with their friends.
Mm-hmm.
And will we remember this once this is over and we get back to the shops, or we have more products? The advertising industry gives us more products we don't need. I mean, the whole basis of consumerism is that people have all their basic needs met, and then they go on to buy more stuff that they don't need.
Yeah.
We don't need the stuff we buy, because if we didn't have excess income, we couldn't buy stuff we didn't need.
Yeah.
So in that sense, maybe we'll begin to see that our functions as human beings, it's somehow, in addition to being factually incorrect, but in fact, the most important thing about us as human beings is not our relationship with Amazon.
Yeah.
But actually our relationship with each other. And now that we're missing that and looking for that, maybe we'll have some memory of it after this is over. I mean, it will end.
Yeah.
But
God willing.
They're going to rush in with the consumers
We'll certainly
as
try.
quickly as possible. Right?
But yeah, let's leave it there on that optimistic note, because I like the idea that we're going to come back to the humanity and the relationships. So yeah, that's all for today. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Boris.